just talk about segmenting the clients. So the good news is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm sure I haven't touched all the issues, but I reckon that's my toolbox. When I go into a meeting with a client, that pretty much covers probably even more of the issues that I would ever want to raise with a client. So it's a lot to take in, but if you already have an understanding of all those issues, or you think you could have an understanding of those issues, you are 90% the way to having the foundations of an estate planning practice that you can make money out of. That's the good news. So you don't necessarily need to be this guru, technical guru. That's enough. But it's not enough, because if you sent out a letter with all those issues to all of your clients, they think you're mad, and they'd be right. So you need to target it. And that comes down to segmenting your clients. And this is just my view. You can have different views, but this is how I approach it with our clients. There's the tier 1, which is young families and mature families. There's tier 2, which is blended families, farming families, and SME business families. And there's tier 3, that's high net worth families. So that pretty much covers most of the categories that I deal with. And this is how I think about them from a business perspective. Young families, mature families, individuals, and old people have low complexity, but they're low value. They don't want to spend a lot of money on this. They usually collapse all their structures. They're worried about cruising into retirement. If they've got a bit of money, they've got it all stashed in cash somewhere. You can't insure them, so they're no fun for financial planners. They're no fun for the accountants, because they've dismantled their things and they don't need returns anymore. They're not interested in financial advice, so they're just basically pretty boring. Funnily enough, that's what people think is the target market for estate planning. They're wrong. Tier 2, blended families, farming families, and small to medium businesses, what I call the small fish, sweet fish type scenario. These are people with moderate complexity, so you can actually solve their problems. You're not going to be pulling your hair out. They're highly profitable, so you can make good money, 3 or 4 grand. That's good money. If you can get it done, you get it finished, you get paid, you move on. Good potential for selling risk insurance, because usually there's some sort of gap that we need to fund, so that's good for financial planners. And they usually have a high demand for accounting services and potentially super funds and self-managed super funds. So they really are target, and probably yours as well. And then we have high net worth families, who are usually highly complex, and they're high maintenance. And I find them low profitability or moderate profitability, because they actually think they're doing you a favour by coming to you. And it's quite painful. So I'm sure we've all sacked a lot of high net worth clients, because when we actually do the analysis, they just don't add up. But we think they're trophy ones, particularly the names of people that we all want to be associated with, but in the end, often too hard. Also, they don't need financial planning, because I think they know everything, and they don't need risk insurance, because they're self-insured, they tell you. So really, and if you're getting paid on a funds under management, that's all sort of getting harder. So hopefully they'll have to wake up, and I hope there's not too many high net worths in the audience. So what I'm going to do here is run through quickly those categories and talk about the sort of issues. So you go to your client base, and you get the junior to go through and identify through your data points who's got kids under 18. And then you send them a letter. Who's going to look after your most important asset when you die? Have you appointed a guardian? Do you want the government making those decisions? Have you thought about, kids looking at starting a school? What's going to happen if you get hit by a bus? Do we need to think about some insurance? And if we've got insurance, you've just got the insurance in place for one of your clients, you send them a letter and you say, look, good news, $2 million is in place. You really need to think about your will, because do you want that $2 million going to Jimmy when he turns 18? And they'll say, oh no, actually I hadn't thought about that. And they'll come in and do an estate planning piece. Choosing the right executors. A lot of people say, I'll just appoint my brother or my sister. Do you want to have imposed that on them? And are they going to, is there that division of responsibility between the guardianship and the money, those sort of things. And the old chestnut, which usually gets them in, what happens when the surviving spouse remarries and just leaves your kid on the side, on the side of the road, but doesn't necessarily give them priority. And things are going to be tough when one of you has died. So if we can get a little bit of a tax benefit, isn't that going to be great? Yep, that would really help. So rather than dump all these assets on the surviving spouse who's now pushed up into the top bracket and is having to meet a whole lot of costs that they didn't previously have to, we can structure things around getting some tax relief. If you send a letter with some or all of those issues to all the clients, which you tick a box that have kids under 18, they'll ring you. Parents with older kids. Divorce of the children, super pensions, repartnering of surviving spouse, educating the grandchildren, so we're starting to think multi-generational now. Saving tax, we're in that really high expense phase of life where the kids are costing a fortune. So we can start using them as a tax saving vehicle. The only downside is that one of us has to die. And bankruptcy and asset protection. So these are the sort of things that tend to elicit a response from people with more mature families, starting to get into middle age, got kids, maybe some grandkids on the way. They might have a business, etc., which we can talk about, throw a few more things into the mix. But really the key one tends to be the repartnering of the spouse. By that stage, the gloss has moved off a bit. We don't have a young family. We've got kids that have driven you mad. So, so that one probably should be at the top as far as a concern that will elicit some sort of response. Blended families, identifying contribution to family assets and dividing the assets between the families if one of them dies. So making sure that your kids are going to be protected should you die and your partner has kids from a different relationship. The other thing is often there's younger kids associated with a blended family. So you've got older kids who might be through school and younger kids who need to go through school, and you might allocate assets differently, something different to fair, because the younger kid needs more money to get the same outcome the older kids have already enjoyed. Divorce of older kids, repartnering a surviving spouse, and saving tax. So you can see there's a bit of a theme going here. That's the sort of target list. Families with business. Management of the business. Raise those issues. Control of the business. Responsibility. You've got this burden that you're going to unload onto these people if you pop your clogs. Timing of the gifts. If you're an entrepreneurial type family, you understand things go wrong and you don't want to let your kid blow up everything on the first shot. You want to give them a second chance. Complexity of their business affairs. Debts, so you've got some risk insurance perhaps in there. Buy-sell deed if there's third parties that are involved. And asset protection. A lot of thinking of business people, obviously, the asset protection. And repartnering and surviving spouse. Families with farms, keeping the farm together. I don't know if any of you have got much of a farming practice, but if those that have will understand that this is probably all they think about. Well, certainly all one of the couple will be thinking about. Keeping the farm in the family, so keeping it together so it's sustainable economically, keeping it in the family so that all those nasty son-in-laws and daughter-in-laws don't get their dirty mitts on it. Timing of the gifts, so when are they going to receive these gifts and what happens if they stop farming, is there clawbacks, that sort of stuff. Funding gifts to off-farm family members, so I'm going to give the farm to one of the kids, how do I compensate the other kids? Sometimes the risk insurance goes in there or some sort of investment portfolio. A lot of people get investment properties in the city or something like that. Divorce, debts, and repartnering, and funding lifestyle of the surviving spouse. That's a key one that I bring up because they're doing everything to pass the assets down the line, and they just leave the surviving spouse starving usually, and it's just crazy, living off the most amazingly low amounts of money. I just don't know how they do it, but it's very common. And then finally, high net worth individuals, I call the high maintenance individuals. First thing they need is emotional counselling because of their upbringing. You can tell I really like high net worth individuals, don't you? I try and get them to understand the difference between their business as a business and their business as an investment, because it's usually the biggest investment, it's usually a huge investment. But they're always thinking in the business. So I want Jimmy to become the CEO or whatever, but if you were an investor and a shareholder in that business, would you want Jimmy to be the CEO? Maybe not. So in estate planning, I try and bring them out of the business and make them start thinking about it as an investment. Bloodline, gradual release, giving assets over time, family governance, councils, constitutions, and then ultimately a family office for those that need a lot of support. everybody needs a testamentary trust. That's just sort of, I won't go through all of that, but. So your role as the trusted advisor is to understand the key issues and match them with the target client for whom those issues are going to be relevant. So I'm sort of starting to probably repeat myself here a bit, but it really is that, as far as I see it, that simple. So your role as the trusted advisor